there's a love story in it. And then there's also a really dark, sad trajectory that led to our divorce. And sometimes I don't know which story to tell, because you know what I mean? Like for my kids, it's like, how do I tell the story that's so hard? What's the end of the story? What does this mean to me now?
Welcome to The X-Files, a podcast about breakups, broken hearts, and moving on. I'm Claire.
And I'm Janice. We are breakup coaches, here to help you beat your breakup,
heal your broken heart,
and move on to an amazing, abundant life.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of X-Files, and I guess a joint episode with About Face podcast. We've got its host, Kate Marlene, here with us this morning. Hi, Kate. Hi, Claire.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Well, this is kind of cool. So Kate is a listener, and she's a member of our Facebook group. And we started talking a couple months back about maybe doing a joint episode because Kate let me know that she has used some of the tips and tricks from X-Files in her breakups, and it was very successful. And, you know, it just seemed like a match made in heaven. So we're glad to make this happen finally.
Yeah. Well, also, like I said, we have so much in common. When I started listening to your show, it was really funny because Janice, you lived in Arizona and I went to college there. And then you also lived in Australia and I lived there for a bit. And then you also married someone in Germany. And I was like, okay, this girl has way too much in common for me, like to not listen to her show.
Oh yeah, that is so interesting. We've lived in multiple same places. Oh, and everyone who's listening, we're both blonde. So
yeah, we're both natural blondes. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm so natural.
Wink, wink.
Yeah. Well, Kate, thank you so much for being here. And Kate's actually dialing in from Berlin. That's pretty cool.
Still here. Yeah, I moved here like 10 years ago.
Oh,
it's
wow.
kind of part of my story, which I could share,
okay.
But yeah.
Super. Yeah. Okay. Well, then I was going to ask you why you were there, but it sounds like we're going to find out. And it sounds like you might have gone to Germany for a man, just like I did. I really like Germany though.
Yeah.
I liked living there.
You can probably relate to this, but it's like, when you're younger and you're thinking of all the romantic places you can go. I mean, for me, Germany was not on that list. And I always thought, okay, maybe I'll end up in like France or Italy or I don't know.
I always thought England or New York for myself.
Something, but I think when I came here, so I had actually, do you want me to tell my story or do you want to
First of all, I mean, yes, I definitely do, but I thought it might be fun. Well, fun for at least Claire and myself to know how you discovered X-Files. And then, we'll get into how it helped you and how it relates to your stories.
Yeah, let's do that. So I've been through a lot of breakups and I'm 41. I've been divorced. I've called off a wedding. I've had like a lot of relationships in between. So in some ways I should be really experienced at this. But last summer I had what I consider still like one of my worst breakups. I think because I wasn't prepared for the end. I also wasn't prepared emotionally. Like it was the first sort of relationship I had since my divorce. And so part of me thought, I'm like, I couldn't be more emotional about this than my actual divorce. And so it was shocking to feel such heartache over a relationship that actually was only 6 months long. And also a relationship that I wasn't really that serious about in the beginning. But I was so I should also mention I'm in a 12-step program for alcohol recovery. And I'm also in a 12-step program for sex and love addiction. At the time, I wasn't,
right?
Yes, SLA.
Yeah.
I'm SLAN. The person that I broke up with was also in both of these programs. So it's not like him and I never did work on ourselves or that we didn't have some self-awareness around recovery, codependency. Like this is all the language of these programs, but again, I was shocked that I could be sort of brought to my knees. And because I'm a podcaster, I'm so how do I say this? I have such a reverence for the podcast community in all different ways because I found so much healing through podcasts when I was going through recovery. And so I had the same reaction of like, oh, maybe there's a resource for me for breakups. And I just, again, I wasn't really prepared for how much pain I was in. So yeah, this was about August last summer and I found your podcast and I think I went through the first episodes really quickly. And of course, this message of no contact was like one of your stronger messages. And it was interesting because I hadn't really considered that an option. You know, it's like, but of course we would stay in touch, you know? So actually no contact is something we do in SLA. It's not like I hadn't heard of it. It's part of what they call like the withdrawal period. So that means no contact from like the person. They treat it like an addiction. And so I know you've also talked about this in your show. It's like when you go through a breakup, you have to treat it like a drug. And so again, because I'm in recovery, I was very familiar with this concept of I have a physical chemical addiction to this person, to this high, to the sex, to the comfort, all of these ways that, again, I was very familiar with dealing with drugs and alcohol, but then going, wait, you can have this with a person. Like that was really shocking. Interestingly, I think the way that you talk about it is really helpful because it's not just addicts who have this experience with relationships, right? Like this is something that can affect anyone with hormones, like anyone with neurochemistry is going to have a physical response to a breakup. So having heard that in program and then also like then finding your podcast, having it reiterated and going, this isn't just about my addiction. This isn't just about like, Kate has addictive problems, you know, like Kate needs to do this. It was like, actually, this is a human response, you know, this is just a human experience. And it was about self-care. And I really liked that message that you both have, that no contact isn't about, and I did, by the way, find this content like, you know, how to get them back with no contact, you know, and
I know it's so toxic and sad.
But I kind of was tempted. I mean, there was part of me that was like,
when you're in pain, of course. It's
well,
like
and I also
very
like the
appealing.
idea of control. Like that's control, right? That's, what can I do to get control back of this person? Right. And that's what I think sometimes people see no contact as a way of manipulating the other person emotionally. How can I make them miss me again? How can I make them want me again? And it's in some ways a game, but in some ways, because it kind of, I don't want to say it works, but I think there are, you know, you read in some of this literature about this is what happens when someone pulls away. Then there's like this rat research on how people become more attached when you pull away from them or whatever. And it's like, I think people use this in the context of no contact to say, I'm going to win them back using this like twisted thing. But anyway, I think you both really simplified it for me. It's like, no, this isn't about him. This isn't about anything wrong in me. This is just about making a healthy choice for myself. So anyway, with that breakup, it was hard because the first 2 weeks of no contact, I was like kind of waiting for, like, you know how you have said with your clients, sometimes you set some rule, like some ideals, right? Maybe you'll wait a month, or what do you kind of say, if I can get through this period. And I had a little calendar of like, it was like 3 months. I'm gonna go 3 months, no contact. I would mark off the days.
Yes.
But there was still in that time, I have to admit, there was still this part of me that was like, okay, but then maybe he'll call. Right. Then maybe we can talk again. I was waiting for the end. And I would say to your listeners, like, that's not a nice way to go about it. Like it actually, I think, draws it out. I think it can make it more painful. It's kind of like when I quit drinking. The first time I tried to quit drinking, I was like 22. And I remember thinking, okay, if I can quit drinking for a year, I'm not an alcoholic. Well, a year went by. I was waiting for the day that I could drink again, which I did, you know, and it was like, it reminded me of that, where it's like, if you're waiting and you're counting down for the day, like you're not over it, right? You're addicted. You're still just waiting for that fix. And so seeing it that way was also like, it was. So I would also say during this time though, like just the sheer amount of time away, right? You're not like checking their Instagram. You're not knowing what they're doing. Like in some ways, you're just living completely separate lives. And just the sheer fact that there's that space, that time, you're going to do some healing. You're going to get some distance. Now, in my case, this last year, like we did have contact again and it was not good. The time we got in touch after that was devastating. Like I found out he was seeing someone else.
Yeah,
He's like,
that's what I often hear from people is that after if they regain contact, it actually ends up being even worse sometimes than it was before.
Yeah.
Yep. And
because
so,
I mean, some healing has taken place, and I think when you try and become friends again after that, it can just I mean, the wounds are still so raw.
Yeah.
well,
that I think it can really escalate quickly into kind of a disastrous situation.
Well, and the expectations. I think in my mind, he's going to have missed me. He's going to have reflected. He's going to have this new perspective that's going to like make him realize how wrong he was, and how stupid that was of him. And that is not the message I got,
Yeah.
And honestly, what's hard for me too is like, even now, like there was actually a big age gap between us. Like he was only 28 and I'm 41. And it was like, oof, like we knew going into this, there were some big differences in like our life goals. And so I think that's why there was some shock at the end where I was like, well, why are we doing this? And even actually I broke up with him. That's the other funny thing that we've talked I heard you talk about on the show too, is like, just because you're the one who ended it does not mean you're not going to be the one in pain at the end. And that was like, I'm like, wait, why do I care? Like I ended this. I was done with it. I hated the relationship, but somehow now I hate being out of it. It was like, but anyway, a lot of my healing in this last year has been like, really, I really attribute a lot to your podcast. I really enjoy your episodes. I mean, obviously you're both so like friendly and relatable. And so I really like your stories and all that you've been through and what you've brought from your personal experience into your practice. I think it's so useful. And I also agree with you that there's not a lot of resources on this. Like there's a lot of this online stuff about like how to get a guy back and this sort of, this, I would call it toxic. And this is more directed towards women, but I've noticed this like trend of male dating experts who are like trying to tell women how to get men. And it's like, for me, like I'm a therapist, like I work in healing. And to me, these are not healing practices. This is about,
agreed. It's either how to get him back or how to get him. I mean, and I think especially it's very seductive for women to listen to some of this. I mean, I listened to a little bit of it, especially when the men who are dispensing it are charming and good looking and have, sexy accents, not using any names here.
I mean, some of it's also useful. Sorry.
Some of it is so good for sure. But I guess my point is there's not as much as what Claire and I do, which is just a resource for breakups and just how to feel better from your breakup and, how to navigate just that is all I'm saying.
And telling people what they need to hear for like health and for their own self-confidence long term, instead of just selling what people want when they're in a desperate like situation. They're like, I want this more than anything, just make the pain stop. And then someone comes along and promises that if you follow what I'm saying, it will give you what you want. And it's like, but is it ethical? Like, not really. Will it work? Probably not. Like it's just shady and icky and and it's not like us women need any man to tell us how to get a man if that's what we're looking for.
I mean, I might. That's another episode. I really might. But no, I think like one thing, and I think I've heard this from you several times, is that our culture doesn't really have a space for this particular kind of pain, right? Like when you go through and when I was going through my divorce, it was like divorce has that edge, right? There's like ooh, you're getting divorced, because of the legal drama and maybe you have kids, which I did, but there's not like, oh my God, like I need to take off work because I'm going through a breakup. Like we don't have that. You might, and the thing is like, I actually think the pain of this is comparable to a death, is comparable to, even when someone loses a pet, you get more sympathy, This is not to diminish the pain of losing a pet, but it's actually to understand that like culturally, we don't have language around the pain and trauma of a breakup unless it is in the context of a divorce. Yeah. And I don't think that actually adds up, because I've been through both. And I can tell you, like, my breakups have been harder than my divorce for different reasons. They don't feel the same for me, actually.
And I think when there's not a divorce involved, it's really easy for people, which we've talked about on the show. It's really easy for people to just say, you know what, you just need to put this behind you. Like, just put this behind you. Excuse me. Like, I can't get out of bed. You know, I don't really know what that looks like. And so that's
you'll
why
find someone better. Yeah. Like,
yes. Or you're lucky. This is, you know, things I heard when I left, you know, German boy, is that, you're better off. So like, why are you so upset? Wait, if you're better off, then how, you know, can you be devastated? Like, and so, we try to be as practical as possible.
Yeah.
Well, I was so glad it helped. And I think, you know, before we get in too much further, we'd be curious to hear if you feel comfortable sharing anything about your divorce.
Oh, sure.
And like maybe pre X-Files, you know?
I'll try to keep it a bit brief, but I think the story's relevant. You know, it's like, so when I was in my 20s, like I was a pretty like free spirit, you know, but I think as I was approaching, it's not like I didn't have relationships. I had many, but I wasn't like looking to get married necessarily. As I approached 30, I think I did start feeling this pressure, like, especially because I was living in the US. I was in New York at the time, but like my younger sister got married, like all my friends were getting married. And I actually like rushed into an engagement with my high school boyfriend. Wow. It was. And so this was the story I wrote you, was that speaking of not letting people go, we were like high school sweethearts, and we started writing love letters to each other when we were like 18. And so from 18 to 29, we weren't in the same state. Like I was in Arizona, Minnesota, moved to New York. He was in Wisconsin, and we started like Skyping, and we got engaged like within a month. And I think looking back, it was just like, okay, we're turning 30. Like we used to love each other. Like, let's just try this. And so I was in a PhD program at NYU, dropped out, moved in with him, and we planned this whole wedding. And it was like getting closer, and I was just like, this was like, I just couldn't let go of this story. And this is why I started becoming really interested in like the role of story, not just in like breakups, but in relationships in general. So I actually studied literature. I was getting a PhD. And so, you know, I did a lot of work on stories and narrative, but I couldn't see how it was actually driving me right in my life. Yeah. And I think this is a good example of, I had a love story. I remember thinking, this is a love story. We met when we were 16. I lost my virginity to him. We've been writing love letters. Like, what a great story. Now it's going to end with our marriage but you know, then we're just going to like really put a bow on this. Exactly.
Completely.
But I didn't know him. I moved in with him. And I remember this day I moved into this like small studio in Wisconsin. You can imagine, after living in Manhattan, and I moved back to Wisconsin. And I remember living in the studio and like opening up this closet, and it was full of like fishing gear and waders. And I'm like, oh my God, like you're a fisherman? Like, I'm like, I don't even know you. I mean, I hadn't really lived in the same state as him for 10 years. Not that I didn't love him or care about him on some level, but like we didn't never have practical conversations about groceries or money. You know, it was like, let's write poems and just talk about love, you know? So anyway, I did call off the wedding. That's when I went to Australia. And I started just like traveling the world. Cause I was like, okay, I don't want to do this. So I was like, I wanted to kind of be on my own. And so, I spent a couple years traveling. And at some point, I had a friend in Berlin, and they were like, oh, you should come here. And I just thought it'd be 1 month in Berlin, go to some clubs, go back to San Francisco. And I was on dating apps at the time. So this was before Tinder, actually. It was just like, OkCupid, I think, was the only one we had. But anyway, I was on OkCupid. I'm like, I want to meet someone who speaks English, because everybody I met was like German. And I met a guy from Detroit. And I still remember my message to him. I was like, would you like to show like a culturally deprived American around Berlin? And
Oh,
so
baby, that's a good opener.
Yeah.
So this is funny. Okay. So I can like sum up the next 8 years pretty quickly, which was
I totally know what you mean.
We fell in love. Yeah, exactly. I was kind of whirlwind romance kind of person anyway. So like we fell in love. I moved in with him. Like we met in September. I moved in October. We got engaged like that summer. And the funny thing was he knew I was like, I had called off my wedding. And so when we talked about getting married, he was like, well, I'm not proposing to you, Miss Runaway Bride. He's like, if you want to get married, you have to propose to me. So I proposed to him that summer. We got married 6 months later. So also in my stories, like we were both pretty heavy partiers and drinkers. And so one thing for me was like, okay, when I have a baby, like we can't keep up this lifestyle. And I kind of thought he was on the same page. It was like, I think these are just assumptions that we make, about people, but I thought, okay, we're going to, change essentially. And I don't, I have my own story with alcohol. Like I don't want to bring him into it, but I can say the role that alcohol played in our marriage was the same role it played in our divorce. It was like, it brought us together. And then when I quit drinking, we didn't have that. There was other issues related to, I would say, rage. And, there were issues like, I don't know how to say this. I don't like the word abuse. I think and I don't know why, because I think I've talked myself out of that so many times where it's like, okay, he didn't hit me. I think even saying this to you out loud is scary for me because I am like, what if his mom is listening? Like I haven't told anyone in our close circle really what happened, partly to protect him. And also because we co-parent now. So I feel like part of me, again, I think the role of story is really relevant here too, because there are two stories that for us, right? There's like our love story. There was falling in love. There was like me moving here for him and having kids. And there's a love story in it. And then there's also a really dark, sad trajectory that led to our divorce. And sometimes I don't know which story to tell because you know what I mean? Like for my kids, it's like, how do I tell the story that's so hard? What's the end of the story? What does this mean to me now? And, if he was sitting here with me, I would tell him like, I'm sorry it went this way, but I still like love parts of our story. I still love that we had these kids. I'm also really glad we're divorced. Like
I can relate because my marriage also ended pretty badly. I don't think two people hated each other more when when we finally separated for good. But he also played a really important role in my life because we were together when I left the Mormon church, and the first few years were really great. And he had my back in a way that like no one else did. And I always I'm reminding myself like I don't want to take that away from me, because leaving the Mormon church was like this really big cool thing that I did in my life. And, I left much earlier than, most people who get out of that faith do. And he was, really, really, really important part of that. And, I can't separate my story of leaving Mormonism from my relationship with him. And so it's, kind of this constant battle of, what story is it? And like, what did this relationship really mean to me, especially considering how bad it ended?
Well, and I think for your listeners, it's a really important point because what we can do is understand that there can be multiple truths, that we don't have to settle on a singular narrative. And I think people get stuck here because it's like, but they're not all bad. No, they're not. Yeah. And also it wasn't all good, right? Like, I think we can get stuck in trying to find the truth because actually the role of story is very innate in human beings. Like we're wired to make meaning. Our brains are wired to make sense and make meaning of our experiences. And so this is actually how we survive, right? We pay attention to what has happened to us. We process the experience. We try to make sense and say, I'm going to do this again or not this again. And so the idea that we wouldn't be making a story up is just like impossible. And so what we can do though, is try to appreciate multiple truths at the same time. and go, here, this did happen. And so did this, but this doesn't have to rule out, you don't have to erase the beautiful moments just because it's over. Right. And I think this is a really hard thing to do, and not to be confused with romanticizing, right? Like, it's one thing to try to look back on a relationship and be like, oh my God, this was so amazing. How could this end? That's different than going, we had some really great moments. This person taught me a lot, and Claire, I think you outlined once this, I think it was you who had these like reflection things. It was like, what did this relationship, maybe you remember it better than I do, but it was like, what did this relationship teach me? It was like letters to yourself, or letters to the person. And it was like how saying thank you. And will you remind me?
I'm sorry. I forgive you.
Exactly. And I think, yes. And I loved this exercise because this allows for these multiple truths, right, to exist and to not feel I have to put this all into one story that's going to make sense for everybody. And also, like, your truth is going to be different than theirs. And that's also okay, right? That like someone else can have the exact same experience as you and tell a different story. You don't have to fight them. It doesn't make your story false, right? Like you have to, and I think sometimes people get confused with the word story as though it means a fairy tale, right? Or this is a made up thing. Like when I say story, I just mean a explanation of the experience, right? Or a way of making sense of something. But the way we use the word story to describe the meaning making part, right?
Yeah, the meaning making.
And so please.
No, I was just going to say, what would you say about the fact that what I hear from some people, I think a lot of people understand the concept of stories once writing the end of your story. But a lot of people say will get kind of confused with what your ex's story is and get really wrapped up and concerned about that compared to your own story.
Which is something you can't control as well.
That's the main part, right? And also, like, I think this comes back to our own insecurities and our own sense of value and worth, right? Like sometimes we're looking for that person to mirror us or agree. This happens in all kinds of ways in our lives, not just with exes, but like even politically, right? Like sometimes we're looking for something to confirm who we are, like our identity, our sense of self. I mean, this is a basic human need to belong, right? Having someone reflect your truth is a way of feeling secure. It's a biological experience. So I think what we have to remember is like, you have to get over that fear of, ooh, this is scary to feel alone right now. And having a belief that's singular, like separate, is disconnecting. It feels like, ooh, I'm even pulling more away from this person. We don't even agree on what happened.
Yes, this is how sometimes the concept of closure comes in, and it's like, well, true closure is coming to all these determinations, on your own, and then kind of fighting the urge to make sure your ex knows, the conclusions that you came to, and making sure that they know, maybe the impact that they had on you, and pulling away even more and just like sitting with it, like this is just my story. It doesn't need to be theirs as well. I may never know how they feel about it, or they, may never fully realize, how horrible I thought they were or how I was impacted. And that's fine, because that means that we're creating more space between us.
And the urge to like tell them what you're learning post breakup, because what you're learning is really dependent on everything that's led up to this point for you, which is obviously different than what has led up to that point for that person. They may never come to the same conclusions that you do about like attachment style or what actually caused the breakup or anything like that, or what this means in their lives. And so you can't force someone to be on the same meaning making page as you just to like feel more comfortable and feel like you have social proof that you're right. You kind of have to go on that journey of gaining confidence in yourself and in your own interpretation without needing anyone else to like confirm that for you. And that's hard to do. That's really hard.
It's a hard urge to fight. I think
it's very human, you know. Again, it's like we have to forgive ourselves of these instincts because, like, I know you've talked about this before. It's like they're meant to keep us safe, right? They're meant to keep us in a social clan and with, you know, this feeling of security and safety that comes with understanding and belonging. And I think stories are a part of that, right? Like but I think, again, to have some perspective and awareness, like if you're desperately trying to figure out, and I'm saying this because I've done it, I'm not like above this, I still do it sometimes. It's like, if you're in that loop of like, what do they think? What do they think happened? What do they think of me? What do they think of the breakup? What are they thinking about me now? Like all these questions, like you
do they feel bad?
Yeah. My ex-husband will probably never admit what happened. I could tell him stories. I could make him a podcast, you know, like it doesn't matter how much I try to say or articulate, or I'm a writer too. So it's like, I have this need to like, I want to write things down. I want to share them. I want people to like, you know, read what I write and understand me better. And that's great. Make some art, you know, make something and share it, but don't think you can change one particular person, or that what, you know, what you need to say has to land with that person, you know? And I would ask, why do you care? Why are you, what do you care? And I think it's not an easy answer, but sometimes we can get a bit closer to the truth, which I think it's like, we want to feel value. Can you give that to yourself? Is there a better way to give that sense of belonging and value to yourself without looking to that one source that you've been dependent on, right?
Well, this is a good segue into what I was just about to ask, which is, I think one reason we look for closure in the sense of making sure our ex knows the story that we've come up with is because breakups can be such a lonely thing to navigate, and they can be such a lonely thing to get over because no one really will fully understand what it was like for us at the end of the relationship. And, you know, we don't get the validating messages from our friends and family. And even if people are like, yeah, you know, they were a jerk, you're right, you know, time to move on, no one can fully, you know, embody what those moments were like for us. And so somehow we think that like really nailing it, you know, nailing our ex and really giving it to them will somehow help us with that. So when you're looking for that comfort and that company, what would you suggest for people using narrative therapy to, you know, create that for themselves?
So in narrative, I mean, we're working with stories, right? And we're looking at what stories are we telling ourselves about our experience, about our past, about who we are. I think with breakups, for me, it triggers like these deep, deep core wounds, these really inner child wound experiences where we feel a sense of lack. I mean, the reason attachment theory is so popular is because it's looking at these core wounds going like, what's underneath this all? That's very compelling because it's very real that like we're all bringing our childhood, our family dynamics, our traumas, like all of this is coming out in a breakup. It's not just a breakup, right? It's going to trigger all of these other things, our feelings of loneliness, our feelings of not belonging. You might start feeling like that teenager again who was bullied, like whatever your experience is going to be triggered, right? So what I would try to do, I mean, obviously everybody's experience is so different, but if you can start to look at what is coming up for you, right? What stories are you telling yourself about yourself because of the breakup? You know, some of it's basic, feeling unlovable, feeling not good enough. Oh, I'm not pretty enough. I mean, that was always my thing, which is really funny because no one breaks up with you because you're not pretty enough. You know, it's like, it's just not the case. There is something else going on, right? They were with you, like, and I think that thought is not about the person. It's about us. That's about cultural shame. That's about media shame. That's all these other things that are being layered on our breakup that have nothing to do with the other person, right? So if you can start looking at what stories are coming up for you, you can actually start to see like, and I love this message you have too about this being a fertile time for growth, because I actually think the more that's coming up for you, the more you probably can work on, right? It's not just about the breakup. It's like, ooh, I have this kind of like really old story about feeling not good enough, or, you know, sometimes it does trigger our daddy issues. You know what? Like we can work on it. And so yeah, I think the narrative perspective is really about how are we attaching stories to our pain, right? And how are the stories actually deepening our level of pain because we're feeling it in a core way, right? And I don't want to minimize, like, it is actually, you're losing a person for sure. Like you're having a loss. But I do think, like, I had a client, actually, we worked together for a year on her breakup. This was actually before I even found your podcast, before I went through mine. And I remember just like, I felt really helpless because we were going through her story of the breakup month after month, you know. It was like, and I kept going like, this is not about this guy, you know. It was like, but in almost some ways, like, I think breakups can be the thing we attach to. Like, I don't want to, and you know, she had like, I don't want to say too much, but there was just like a lot of family history stuff. And it was like, we kept coming back to this breakup. And in my mind, I'm like, this is about something else. But I think sometimes it's a focal point when we're not dealing with our other stuff. Right.
Yeah. And it's a safer way to explore things that are coming to the surface. Like, it's easier to be like, he did this or blah, blah, blah. Like, and this was the dynamic between us, rather than saying and like admitting that subconscious like knowledge that this was the dynamic between, you know, just to be cliche, my father and I. Like, so, you know, if you say the core issue, you're kind of like committing to unpacking or at least having to deal with that knowledge. And I love what you said earlier about it being a fertile time for exploring all of these other issues, because it made me think of like a field. You know, when you want to plant something in the field, you have to plow the land first, which is like quite a literal upheaval, and it's bringing what was underneath to the surface. And it's like this really cool metaphor. So thanks for that trigger word that like brought that image to my head. But
it's painful to plow. That's pain.
Yeah. And, you know, the entire ecosystem in that field is disrupted for a time. And, you know, all the birds and stuff have to make new nests and new ground squirrel holes and things, you know? So
and that is scary for those squirrels. It's like a scary time.
They're like, the world is ending. And yeah,
especially if it's a dry desert field, it's going to take you lots of time to plow.
Oh yeah. So we can keep extending this
metaphor. Deep dive this metaphor.
Yeah,
3 writers
are planting the same plant in the same field. You'll run out of the nutrients that you need to grow. So you need to cycle the plants and have different phases. Oh my God. Okay.
And then not to mention, you know, fertilizer and manure and, you know, all the double entendre
pesticides.
So
I know these pesticides.
Yeah, which is like maybe unhealtly coping mechanisms with pesticides instead of like co-planting other plants.
Claire, I like that one.
Oh yeah, I've had a client be like, I chose to work with you because of your metaphors, and I'm like, thank you.
But actually, like, speaking of metaphor and symbolism, like, it's actually a really powerful way. You know, humans, again, like, we use symbolism and metaphors to understand things like beyond sometimes our comprehension. Like, that's why dreams have symbolism, you know, like our subconscious actually works in metaphors and symbols. And so you're not wrong. You know, it's like understanding some of these psychic affiliations can be a really powerful way to relate to what our feelings are. And just sort of not unrelated, but during this time I started doing a lot of visual art, and I was making, so I do like digital collage, and I started doing abstract painting. And I realized that like, this was this outlet that, I mean, I'm a lawyer. I was a trained lawyer. I was getting a PhD in literature. It's like my whole life has been about language and words and explaining and making meaning. And then just this year I was like, but does everything have to have words for it? You know, do I have to be the person making meaning in this literal way? Right. So I started using visual art to connect with this different part of myself that was like, actually, I don't want to have to tell a story anymore. You know, I want to express myself. I want to share parts of my experience, but I don't want to have to put into words, you know? And I think, just the use of metaphor and symbolism is very interesting as part of our experience and understanding of what we go through.
Well, I think that's why the Bible has been such a successful book still to this day. Is I think that's why people.
I thought that was literal. What are you talking about?
What?
All right. Well, go ahead, Claire.
Yeah. So speaking of making meaning out of breakups, like what are some of the most important things that you have learned from your breakups, and maybe that can help some of our listeners?
Yeah, I mean, I think interesting, like we start having breakups in like, I don't know, second grade, right? You have this, are we going out, you know, and
going out.
It's like, you know, or just the feelings of like misunderstanding, rejection, you know, not belonging, like the feelings that come up with like a romantic breakup, and even the literal experience of a romantic breakup. Like it actually starts when we're pretty young, right? But I think for me, because of this attachment to like love stories, right? Culturally, we have this real affinity for the romantic love story. I think, I don't know if you've read Bell Hooks, but I think, so she wrote this book all about love, and it's about this romanticization of romantic love. And her book inquires like, what is love? Like, what is it really? What do we really want? And I love it because every chapter is about a different kind of love. So one is like your love with your parent, maybe your love as a parent, your love with yourself, spiritual love, community love. Only in passing does she talk about romantic love. And so what I've learned is like, I think because of our cultural narratives around romantic love, we are sort of socialized to believe that is the only form, or that's the one we should strive for. And yet there's love all around us, you know, in our friendships, you know, with our families, or maybe our chosen families or our communities. And like, you get to choose love, right? You don't have to wait for it. It doesn't have to come in this form, right? Of a relationship. And when one ends, you still have it, right? You still have a choice to find it and connect with it in all kinds of ways. And it does start with ourselves. You know, I think, Janice, your message around being single and like learning to love yourself before you are able to embark, you know, I think you guys are a bit younger than me. And so I've noticed this trend with younger people that like, there's this idea of like, you just have to like find yourself first and then you'll be ready for love. And for me, this narrative is slightly problematic because I don't think there's an end. I don't think there's like, you're full and you're ready. And then now you get to be whole with another person. It's like, you can be whole when you're in a breakup. You know, you can be whole. Like I'm 40, I'm divorced, I'm single, but I still feel more whole than I ever have. I also like had a lot of reckless, you know, relationships, and I learned a lot. So it's a different, I do think generationally, there's a lot. I think people in their 20s and like early 30s were given a bit more of this push around, like, you don't have to get married. You don't have to do this. At the same time, there was a lot of pressure around self-development. Like, is your career ready? Like, are you completely whole? And I just think that's a lot of pressure to put on a person before they can find love. Like, you can always do the work. You can do the work in a relationship, out of a relationship. Like, I think you shouldn't use a relationship to make yourself feel whole. but you don't
Yeah.
have to be a perfected version
Mhm.
to find love.
I know I put in our Facebook group the post that I did about, just that I was single for 4 years. And, it's funny. I had written this post and I was just thinking, well, I don't want to completely hide that I'm in a relationship because, it's not really fair to him. But, I really want to emphasize what the journey of my last 4 years has been and I meant for it to be more about that. And everyone took it as though like I was doing this grand announcement about like being with someone, which is not what I intended to do at all. I wanted people to, think about being single, and that eventually it leads, to all these good things. But someone in the Facebook group asked, were you ever scared that you weren't going to find someone? And I was like, not at all, because my relationship with myself was just so fulfilling that I never even thought about looking for someone. This is just what happens, is that you attract good people into your life, like the stronger you come. And, sometimes it just happens and you click with someone, like when you're not looking, you find it type of thing. So I like what you.
I was thinking about you yesterday. I was driving around and I was feeling like just so good. And I'm kind of dating like multiple people right now. And it's kind of fun because I don't feel this like fear or attachment. I'm just like, oh, I think this is what Janice was talking about. Like you just kind of, once you feel good in yourself, right? You don't have that sense of scarcity and fear. And, and that my point to you wasn't like, you shouldn't be single. It's just more, I think this idea that you have to be completely healed and whole before you can find love. I don't think it's true. That's the only part. I've remembered now what I wanted to say. And this is like kind of tied to this. A few years ago, I was connected with this woman on also through podcasting, and she does a lot of work on egg freezing and we had a bit of a collaboration going. Anyway, one of the things I did was like listen to all her stories of these women who are egg freezing. And this is where I started to notice this trend of younger women feeling like their lives had to be absolutely perfect before they had kids. They were looking for like the perfect relation, perfect husband, perfect job. Like they wanted everything. And maybe it's because because I've been through it. It's like life can be very messy, right? You can't always predict. And it's not to say you shouldn't plan or you shouldn't try to create the best situation for yourself. But I think having an obsession with the outcome and trying so hard to create perfection, like, I don't know, I think it can be dangerous at the same time.
I think that's what I'm seeing with that movement as well, is it's very similar to the whole I've got to find my soulmate this year. Is I've also got to have kids and I've got to be on that path before I can really feel like I've gotten it all, like this is the one thing that's missing. Whereas if you can just focus on the relationship you have with yourself, you might not feel like anything is missing, and then you don't have these expectations that may or may not be met.
Well, and I completely agree that that you're never going to like arrive at this place where every day you feel super great about being single or you love spending every night at home. Like I think Janice, you talk a lot about being good with your relationship with yourself, but it's not that you're always alone. Like you've built up those other relationships in your life where you can experience love through friendship and you can experience love through volunteering, and you have all these other inputs that I think can be frequently neglected in pursuit of this romantic love.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And then
that's a really good point. I built something that was really, that was really thriving, that had nothing to do with, who I was dating.
Exactly.
Which now,
and I think also like part of the journey of this lifetime commitment to, introspection and personal development and all of this, which is like not a bad thing, but putting things on hold until you arrive at a certain destination with that is a problem, because you need to be triggered. You need to be in relationship with other people and see the mirror of yourself in order to like make progress in that area. There's only so much you can do in a vacuum, and only so much you can learn about yourself until you're relating to other people and you're seeing like, ooh, opposites and similarities and all of these different things. So like, yeah, have relationships before you're a complete whole person, for sure.
And maybe you'll never be completely whole. I mean, I think that's another thing, is like, we're all just people learning, and it's
exactly.
I think maybe because I feel like I'm maybe speaking a bit to younger listeners, but I think that was kind of my point, is like, we go through pain, like I just had, like, there's like been 4 or 5 women from my high school class who have lost their husbands recently. And it's like, these are the people who like on Facebook are just like images of perfection, like, the house, the kids and everything. And then this like tragedy, and this isn't about like Schadenfreude or something. It's just like, oh my God, like it doesn't, like all this, the idea of perfection is just passing, and it like, we only have a certain amount of time, right? Like you can't believe that you have to arrive, or that there's some arrival. Like we literally just don't have, it's not what life is, right? There's always going to be trauma. There's always going to be pain.
And inside of relationships, there is, you have to, if you come into your relationship thinking that you're already whole and that you're great, I mean, you're not going to be able to grow with your partner in any way. You won't be able to have a conflict with your partner if you think that, you've got it all put together and all figured out.
Yeah.
It's not a foundation for a very good relationship. So you mentioned earlier that you were dating. Is there anything that you'd be comfortable telling us about, like your current chapter?
Yeah, well, I wanted to just reflect on something Claire said about how we learn in relationships. I was just in Paris last weekend with a friend, and her and I, this is funny, actually, we met in an online support group. She's in SLA, and we just like connected right away. And when I was going through this breakup, she was just like the person I would call. She lives in Tucson, and we were just like constantly in communication. But anyway, she just like flew out to Berlin, and we met for the first time and went to Paris. And anyway, I said to her, like, I wish I would have never dated this person who I had the breakup with. And like, it was, I just feel like it was so stupid. And she goes, oh my gosh, like, are you kidding? She's like, we never would have met. And she goes, think of all that you've learned this year because of that breakup. And I was like, oh my God, so this is what I can say is like, because of that experience and because of the pain, I've completely changed the way that I date, the way that I partner, even. Like I've had another relationship sort of in between, and the guy was great. It just wasn't a good match for me, like emotionally. So we broke up in April. And I think I mentioned to you that in that relationship, I just went no contact right away. And that actually was much easier. And I think, to be fair, like sometimes it's easier to go no contact when you're not totally emotionally, invested or devastated. It felt easier in that case. But
well, and it had been a short relationship from what I understand too, right?
Yeah, it wasn't like but
well, that's why going slow helps, because then you can like kind of go no contact without it being as devastating.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I think where I'm at now is that I have a lot of learnings, but I feel like I'm I think this sounds strange, but because I'm getting better at letting things go, I'm more open. I'm more like, okay. And here's a strange thing. Like last summer, right before this breakup, I was with a friend and I was like, I've like never been dumped. Like I've never been broken up with. Like I haven't really had this like deep heartache. And my friend was like, well, maybe you need to go through that. And I was like, no, like I'm good.
No, thank you.
Yeah. And literally it was like a month later that I went through this breakup, which was like very unexpected, but it actually was really liberating for me, because this thing that I had put off, like I was so scared of this pain, what that would feel like, this rejection or the sense of like just something ending so suddenly was like so terrifying to me. And then I went through it and it sucked, like for sure. But now I'm like, okay, like I can do this, I can handle my pain. And I think you both have talked about this, but this is also something I've been working on with some other people, is this idea that you have to trust yourself. And like, that doesn't mean just trusting your instincts when you're dating or trusting like your feelings, but also trusting that you can handle what happens to you. Right. And that's so useful, like when you're dating, because you come in it with a sense of confidence, right? Like, okay, like this might not work. I will be okay. Right. Not carrying this weight of, oh my God, I don't want to go through that again. Learning to trust yourself that you can handle pain, right? We have to. And breakups are the worst for sure. But once you go through it, like you really can take that as a badge, it's like you've been through something really hard and you can really strengthen your resilience through it.
I love that and completely agree. I mean, one of the reasons why we wanted to have you on is because like you've been there. You are where our listeners have been right now. You've also listened to the podcast and it's helped. And so now is like the floor is yours to help your fellow listeners as well.
That's a really cute way to put it. I like that so much.
Yeah, that's really cool. Well, firstly, thanks for having me. I mean, it really is an honor to meet you both because I appreciate your work so much. And because I've been through, recently, even like just going through recovery, going through divorce, I feel like I've been through some hard stuff. And I think the greatest strength I've found in myself and others is the ability to ask for help and the ability to seek out resources for support. And so just the fact that somebody has found your podcast and they're taking this time to understand their pain, to understand what's happening and to try to find a solution for it, like says a lot about who they are, right? Like it already says like they're willing to do the work. And we all have work to do. Like we all have pain and childhood traumas. And I think trauma, there's capital trauma and little t trauma, but the idea that we've all been through real stresses in our lives and pains. And so just the fact that you are in a position where you might be really triggered in your life right now. And it can be such a dark time. I used to suffer depression. I remember the worst part of it was like, and the only reason I'm on medication, so I'm not like totally over it, but just this feeling of like hopelessness, right? This feeling like I'm never going to get better, right? This pain is never going to go away. And that's for me, the most important thing to remember is that it will, this too shall pass, but like more importantly, like your feelings are moving through you, right? And you can learn how to manage them. And like one last thing just that I find really helpful is there's this meditation called Rain by Tara Brach. And do you know it? Do you know this one?
Yes, but yeah, please.
Well, so I find it really helpful because it's a really quick way to how do I say, maybe just manage negative feelings. So say you're feeling really overwhelmed. It could be sadness, anger, just anxiety, this feeling of like, oh, like in your gut. And this meditation, you can Google it. It's on like YouTube, or you can listen to it on a podcast to have her guide you. But so the RAIN is like an acronym. It's like RAIN, and you recognize the emotions and then you allow them. So you basically just like create space, right? Not to judge yourself. Say, okay, I can feel whatever this feeling is. And the I is to investigate. And here's where you like actually try to feel where your feeling is in your body. And the idea is like, because you're slowing down your mind, you're stopping this like repetitive thinking, this like really the ways that we can get caught in our negative thinking patterns or fears or whatever. When you go back into your body, you're able to actually calm your mind too. And the last part is, and she describes it as like nourishing. And there's this, it's about self-compassion, really. What would you give yourself in this moment to alleviate that pain, wherever it is, right? Maybe you feel it in your heart, your stomach, like, anyway, I find it really helpful when I'm having a moment of like real stress. So I think, because I think a lot of your listeners are probably coming when they're experiencing physical ailments too, physical feelings of pain. And so I just find that meditation really, really useful and like really practical, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we'll definitely link it in the show notes. And what stands out to me is that it ties back to the fertile metaphor because you have to have rain.
Right. That's
to
true.
grow.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, Kate, thank you so much. Claire, do you have anything else that you want to pick Kate's brain about?
I mean, like so many things, but I think this conversation, thank you so much for coming on the show. And like for our listeners, please go listen to your podcast because it's really, really good as well. And I think it'll be a really good another supplement to your healing journey. So
yes, thank you so much. Everybody go check out About Face podcast. Is there anything else that you want to tell our listeners about as far as what you're up to, what you're working on?
Yeah, so you can find my art at kate.marlene. Oh, sorry, I'm going to say this wrong. katemarlena.art on Instagram. And then also I have another Instagram account, Kate Marlena Love. I'm so bad. I keep changing my handles because I can't stick with it. But I like I mentioned, I'm going through divorce, so I cut off my last name. But you can also find my work at Kate Lismer, Leismer. I think that's all my accounts. Yeah.
Great. Well, we'll make sure everyone is well aware of that. And yes, thank you for everything that you're doing. I really like what you brought into this episode as far as narrative therapy goes and your own experiences. And I mean, you've just done such a remarkable job learning from, everything that you've gone through. And I think it's great. I'm so glad that we did this. And I hope that it helps our listeners. I know that it will.
Yes. Oh, thank you so much. And I really, I truly value what you both are doing. And I just love how you bring your own experience, but also your personalities. Like as a podcaster, I think you kind of go like, is someone like, to me, it's nothing if someone doesn't share themselves. And I think you're both so generous with your stories and who you are. And I think that's why you're really relatable and easy to listen to and really comforting, honestly. Like there's been times where I've been so sad and I'm like, when is a new episode coming out? Like
my heart is just, thumping right now. We appreciate
really
that
means
so
a
much.
lot. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I mean, we're really out there trying to make this useful for our listeners. So to hear that it is means a lot.
Absolutely.
Thanks. Right. Everyone go check out Kate's work and we'll see you back next week.
Thank you for listening to X-Files, a podcast about breakups, broken hearts, and moving on.
If you liked this episode, please help others find us by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts or by following the show on Spotify.
And if you'd like to connect more with us and learn about breakup coaching, find us on Instagram at X-Files Podcast.